Welcome to this episode of Weather with Blake and Heather.
This is the show to learn about all things weather. I'm Blake Harms.
And I'm Heather Bricka.
On this week's episode, we're going to be discussing the details of the aftermath of Hurricane Florence, Hurricane Michael, and recap all you need to know about the weather in October.
We will be covering that and much more after the break.
Unfortunately for those that came back to North Carolina after Hurricane Michael and Florence, home didn't look anything like what they left it. There were still many rivers flooded and homes completely wiped off their foundations. We're going to take a look at what hurricanes have occurred since our last show. Heather, what can you tell us about this year's active hurricane season?
Well, this hurricane season has been pretty rampant all across the Atlantic. More specifically, since our last show, Michael, Willa, and Leslie have amplified and have gone off. So going into Hurricane Michael, it started in the Gulf of Mexico, followed this track all the way up to the Florida Panhandle. Through the Panhandle, it hit max wind speeds of 155 miles an hour, being a Cat 4 hurricane, which Florida hasn't seen that hurricane in a very long time. And this hurricane kind of meandered around the Carolinas and head off into the Atlantic later on. It caused a lot of flooding and rain as a result of that. Now, going into Leslie, Hurricane Leslie was a very unconventional hurricane in its nature. It started in September 13th and continued on to the 18th, where it became a depression. Now, it started here and kind of just meandered off into this little spaghetti-like pattern and kept going until it beelined into Spain October 16th. It strengthened into a Cat 2 and Cat 3 and then went back into a depression and re-strengthened right before it hit Spain. And the biggest thing with Leslie is it just caused a lot of rain in the areas of Spain. Now, Hurricane Willa is the most recent one for us that we have seen some impacts of. It started in the Gulf of Mexico and amplified and hit Mexico, amplifying right before it hit. It started as a Cat 4 and strengthened all the way to a Cat 5, reaching winds at 165 miles an hour, which caused a lot of flooding in Mexico, which they haven't seen in a very long time. The terrain itself in Mexico caused it to drop down to a depression very quickly as it hit as a Cat 3, but that is all that I have for what has been going on in the Atlantic. And currently, our update right now, we do not have any tropical storms in the Atlantic as of right now. So back to you, Blake.
All right, good to hear. Thanks, Heather, for that recap on one of the most active months we've had in the tropics in quite some time. After the break, we're going to show footage from the extensive damage that Michael caused in Florida, as well as what exactly defines a hurricane. We'll be right back.
What is passion? At Valpo, it's something that pours out of us uncontrollably. It's a late night shot of caffeine, cramming for finals, a jam session with friends. It sees deep into space, turns big stuff into small potatoes, floats boats, and floods the senses. Passion is alive, it has a heartbeat, and it lives in you. How do we know? Because at Valpo, passion is who we are.
Welcome back to Weather with Blake and Heather.
For people living on the Florida coast, Michael was forecasted well in advance. It was one of their first major hurricanes to hit the Florida Panhandle since Hurricane Dennis in 2005. By October 20th, the death toll was confirmed to be 36 total people. Before it made landfall, over 30 million people were under a hurricane watch or warning or a tropical storm watch or warning across 6 states. For people living in the Florida and the surrounding states, they were well warned for this natural disaster.
After Hurricane Florence hit North Carolina, which made landfall September 14th, people realized that giant-sized mosquitoes took over the state. These mosquitoes were 3 times the size of regular mosquitoes. The good thing about them is that they don't carry human diseases, but they do carry a dog heartworm. Because they are much larger, their only danger is that the bite hurts a lot worse than a regular mosquito.
Now, the reason why this mosquito population grew in such little time was because this species especially bred in standing water like in post-floods. Scientists are studying to see if this will become a common occurrence with every hurricane that hits North Carolina.
Because it seems like any region that has a lot of moisture in a short amount of time, they see a sudden uptick in mosquitoes, but I've never heard of one where they actually get larger in size.
Yeah, I think with this specific type of mosquitoes, they breed well in water, and because the hurricane brought so much water into the area, they're able to multiply so quickly. Wow. I would not want to see one of those flying around.
No, that makes 2 of us. But looking at hurricanes in general, the season runs from June 1st to November 30th, so we're nearing the home stretch. A hurricane is defined by the National Weather Service as a tropical cyclone with maximum sustained winds 74 miles per hour or higher. Category 3 or higher is a major hurricane. And the big surprise with Michael was that it grew so quickly into a major hurricane.
Yeah, it amplified quickly right before it hit the coast of Florida. But I think so many people were well warned for that hurricane that they were able to get out of the areas that were flooding and being taken down by the hurricane winds.
Right, and with the death toll of 36 people, obviously 36 lives that'll be mourned, but in the grand scheme of things, considering how strong this hurricane was and how much damage it caused, we're really lucky there wasn't more and that people heeded the advice.
Yeah.
And Governor Rick Scott down there in Florida has really gotten the people's respect in terms of when they need to evacuate. Last year when Irma came, that was the largest evacuation the state of Florida had ever experienced.
Yeah.
So when officials tell them they need to leave down there, they've learned that they really do need to heed that advice, and I'm sure that's certainly saved a lot of lives.
Yes, especially with the hurricane watch or warning. It usually comes out within a 48-hour period before it happens, so I think there is a lot of time between when the forecasters can actually make the prediction of the hurricane and then when the population actually needs to evacuate.
Right. So in terms of Michael, it was the first Category 4 storm record to make landfall in the Florida Panhandle. And the thing that was unique about this one, too, was that it moved so quickly. So rain wasn't as big of an issue. It was storm surge along the coast and those horrific winds that came ashore so quickly.
Yeah, the winds that took down quite a bit of homes that are right along the Panhandle totally leveled them. The pictures that I saw from Michael was just quite devastating. And the Air Force Base in Florida received a 130-mile-per-hour wind gust when the hurricane came through. But the reason why they didn't measure higher wind speeds was because the instrument broke.
Wow. And I've heard that there's talk that's happened in past hurricanes where they've gone back, looked at the damage, and perhaps upgraded it. So there's a chance that this could become a Category 5 officially.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like most of the wind instruments broke. So they have an idea of what the sustained winds were, or what the wind gusts rather, but perhaps when they go and do that damage survey, they'll be able to get a better idea.
Yes, they might. And they also said that this was the strongest hurricane to hit since Hurricane Andrew in 1992.
And the fact that 3 days before it made landfall, we weren't even considering it.
No, yeah.
It looked like maybe a Category 2 repeat of maybe Matthew in 2016, and suddenly it's this massive hurricane, the strongest to hit the U.S. in quite some time.
Yeah. So when we come back, we're going to talk all you need to know about the weather in October.
And we'll be covering a fun story on smartphones making better forecasting. Stick with us.
entertainment is at risk. One man is given a mission, but he is about to face his biggest challenge yet. He will race against the clock and open doors to new possibilities that will save weekends as we know it.
What are you doing?
I'm looking for free movies.
Oh, I'll help you with that.
Just go to movies.valpo.edu. They have all the best movies, including The Hobbit and 22 Jump Street.
Whoa, it's that easy?
It's that easy.
Grab some popcorn, grab some buddies, and watch movies.valpo.edu's great selection.
Thanks for sticking with us and welcome back to the show.
We will now be covering the immense amount of snow that blanketed North Dakota this October. Blake?
Yes, over 17 inches of snow has fallen in North Dakota, and it's only October. Grand Forks Air Force Base measured 17.4 inches, with snow drifts measured up to as high as 33 inches. Nearby cities also recorded snow well over a foot. The local farmers say that their crops were already delayed from the rain that fell in October alone, and they fear that this heavy snowfall pushed their harvest even further back.
Yeah, so now smartphones are used to better predict weather. A recent study from Tel Aviv University that is studying weather patterns like flash flooding that may be able to be predicted from one day from our smartphones. The sensors in our smartphones are now able to constantly monitor the atmosphere, like the Earth's magnetic field, atmospheric pressure, light levels, humidity, temperatures, and even more. This study may lead to better forecasting and predictions of hard-to-predict flash flooding events, along with real-time data being fed to forecasters around the world. This will be better real-time weather alerts for the public to be more aware.
I think it's very interesting because you never realize how much data you can tap into with cell phones that could really help the public out as a whole without necessarily invading their privacy.
Yeah, and I think it's more important that the public gets alerts on their phone rather than just through like television broadcasts and radio, because not everyone will be listening to those, but everyone's always on their phone.
Right, and this opens up the door. You know, obviously they face a big hurdle with if people are okay with them accessing that data from their phone. But if this does turn out to be true, this could certainly be a game changer in the world of meteorology, where you have, instead of just having certain surface observing stations, you have millions all over the country.
Yeah, it definitely helps with our automated surface observations and having more real-time feedback to the cloud from just one simple app that someone can download on their phone.
Absolutely. Should be a huge game changer. Now, when we come back, we're going to cover what the winter weather outlook has in store for the Great Lakes region and much more.
Stick with us.
Well, I think that's all we need. Thank you so much for coming in. We'll be in touch.
Okay, this is it. Just shake his hand and walk out with your head held high. Don't mess this up. Thank you. Nailed it. Don't let a bad handshake get in the way of getting the job you want. Find out more at the Career Center.
Good morning, Valparaiso University. What's a better way to start your day than with a new jam? And WVUR has just what you need.
But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you close your eyes, does it... If dying young won't change your mind, baby,
Broadcasting sports, news, weather, and music, on air, online, and on campus. WVUR is my jam.
Welcome back. NOAA came out with their winter weather outlook recently. A weak El Nino is looking like the trend this winter. Now, this usually means above average precipitation. However, portions of Michigan and northern Indiana looks like it will be equal to drier than normal precipitation. And it looks like there may also be some perhaps warmer than average temperatures.
Yeah, so it kind of seems like the winter from 2015 to 2016 was our most extreme El Nino that we've seen in a while here. And this El Nino is looking to be much, much weaker than that.
I was going to say, because that winter was very sloppy, a lot of rain in the early winter months, and not a lot of snowfall per se, as opposed to just a few years prior when we had, over 100 inches here. So
yeah, I think for this region though, it looks like we'll still have pretty cold temperatures.
yeah, and all it takes is that big system or two or that week full of snow to change the whole course of the winter.
Yeah, and of course lake effect snow too.
Yes, that's always a given here in Northwest Indiana.
Yes. So it looks like winter weather will still be about the same for us in Indiana.
Or so we hope. Probably. Now, let's take a look at the small glimpse of weather that what we saw in Valparaiso just last Saturday, October 20th.
Some parts of Indiana saw grappa while others experienced sleet due to the extreme cold front that set up over our area. Wisconsin even saw spots where they got a few inches of snow too. So winter weather is still upon us.
Yeah, and that's really the biggest highlight of the month because it was a relatively quiet month. The high pressure at the center of this Canadian Arctic air mass swept into our area on Friday, leaving temperatures in the Chicagoland area and surrounding areas dropping from the late 30s by late in the day and then plummeted down to the upper 20s on Saturday morning. This sharp change in temperature caused gusty winds and rain showers. After a few hours of rain, it started turning to snow in Chicago and ice over Indiana. Valparaiso saw some hail to sleet all within just a few hours. This icy weather was not at all what we expected to see this Saturday when we started the morning off with temperatures in the 40s, even up to the low 50s. This is an indication that winter weather is right around the corner.
Yeah, well, that just about wraps it up for this episode of Weather with Blake and Heather.
Thanks for watching all you need to know about the weather going on here and around the world. Reach out to us on our VUTV social media pages to share any interesting weather events going on. You can also follow us at VUTV Weather on Facebook and Twitter.
Make sure to join us next time for Weather with Blake and Heather. You won't want to miss it.